Last lecture we started with basics just to get the idea, and we look at the data flow chain, data, we have raw data, that is any activity recorded by a business, any event. Then initially data used to go in a database, then we look at data warehousing, then we say data mining, and then last would be visualization. So we'll continue with data mining. We took a simple example of movie databases, and we said that if we look at plain simple database, it can give us some kind of information. And we looked at if you want to get a report on per quarter sales, then we probably is better to reorganize the data, gather the data on quarter basis and movie basis. So we look at the quarter 2 for a movie Monty Python, then quarter 3, quarter 4, and we did that for other movie like Gone with the Wind, again quarter 3 and quarter 4, and then we have the metric. This is what we had done. And given that we are able to make a easier query, easier representation. And that is where we said the data warehousing, when you store the data in a higher granularity level, so rather than a monthly basis, we keep on a quarterly basis, we probably get a better picture for a specific query. So the data warehouse is typically designed for a specific query that management would need to organize that. Now, given this data, let's say we want to organize to answer the following. The questions are, which is the best selling geography? Is it US, UK, India? Or which is the worst selling geography? Then which movie sells globally and which movie sells only in USA? So given this data, we like to know which is the worst selling geography, which is the best selling geography, which is the movie that sells only in USA, which is the movie that sells globally. So how would your data warehousing table would look like? Anyone like to give suggestion? So I'm interested in a report saying we like to know details rather than the quarterly basis. We want to get details on the geographical basis. Good movies for the best geographies, movie which sells globally, or worst geography and best geography. So how would the data organization in a data warehouse look like? Anyone? Any thoughts? How would you like to look at? Like when you look at the data warehousing report based on quarterly basis, what did we do? We organize the data at a granularity of quarter level. Now, when we are looking at reports based on geography level, our database will look like more of a geography and the movie basis. So we take a location. We take the location, and then for each of the movie, we look at the amount, and then we could make a decision from here. Now from this reorganization, so we have aggregated our data based on geography level. So what is that we can say about this? Anything what you can say about? What is that one can say about if I were to look at which is the worst movie selling geographically, globally, or the movie that has lowest revenue.
Matrix.
Matrix, because it has only $36 million. So Matrix is the one movie which is poorest. But if you look at the movie, which is Monty Python, that movie has the highest revenue. That means to look at globally, Monty Python is the movie that sells globally. Now, in terms of revenue, which is the best location, you can look at the US. US gets you the highest revenue compared to other locations. So US is the best revenue. And if you look at UK, UK gives you the lowest revenue. So UK is the worst geography, US is the best geography. Monty Python is the movie that sells globally best. And Gone with the Wind is the movie that only sells within the US. This movie does not sell outside. So based on that, you can probably look at, depending on the query needs, you design your data and data warehouse as required at a higher granularity, and then you work on that basis. So we are not keeping data on monthly basis anymore. We're just aggregating data based on geography only, on movie basis, and we get our required results. Now, to mine the data in data warehouse, we have different techniques, and I believe you have studied most of them in a machine learning course last semester, 7th semester. I'm assuming your machine learning course in 7th semester. Correct me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you studied it, what is called supervised learning, and you studied what is unsupervised learning. So what is the difference between supervised learning and unsupervised learning? We are all done mining techniques. Question I'm asking is, what is the difference between supervised learning and unsupervised learning?
In supervised learning, the data is given with labels.
Okay.
In unsupervised learning, the data is given without labels.
Yeah. So, and then you basically do, because you're given the labels, you can do train based on the data and things will work out. Perfect. Then you basically look at the data and then you get training and the test data. You classify the data, use classification techniques. Either you can follow machine learning algorithm such as your decision trees, support vector machines, neural networks. You did study decision trees, you did study neural networks. I'm not sure if you studied support vector machines there. But if you look at classification method using statistics, you studied regression analysis or dimension reduction. I'm not sure if you studied that. Same way, when I look at non-supervised learning or unsupervised learning, you basically mostly follow what is called clustering. Group the data together, having some common features, and then based on that, you make a decision. And for clustering, you studied K-means algorithm to make a cluster, and you also have the association rules that is also called market basket analysis, that when do things together or items appear together, you buy together and whatever. And that is where this first time upward is somebody who buys a bread also buys a butter and so on, so forth. So briefly look at those, and then we'll continue next step, what is called data visualization. So if you look at decision trees, decision tree is a way you classify the data, and the decision tree is popular Mainly because if you look at data mining, 70% data mining happens to be classification, and among the classification, 70% of that using decision trees. This is most popular one because it look at the data training and you can quickly classify, follow the tree path, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, different labels, and you can immediately get classification. The problem with decision tree is, what could be the problem with decision tree? Because you'll be using training data to build a decision tree model. What could go wrong with decision tree? Any thoughts? You might get a problem of overfitting. Something kind of data which has not been used in training, you may or may not get the right results. But arriving at a decision is very, very quick, and that is where the decision tree plays the role. The other technique you studied is called regression analysis. Regression analysis primarily, given the data point, or let's say a scatter plot or something, you plot a curve that becomes as close to the data points as could be. You could have a linear regression or quadratic regression or polynomial, but most of the time you stick to linear regression. Or sometimes what you also call is, if there are multiple variables rather than just one, you go into multiple linear regressions. And the whole objective in multiple linear regression is they are to try to minimize the error. So if you were to probably look at, let's say, this is my x-axis and these are my points. I'm trying to draw some points. So if I do linear regression, my linear regression will be a draw a straight line, something like this. And objective is that for each of the point, the distance from the curve should be minimal. And the way you measure, you take a root mean square error, and for which, because there could be number of curves. This is one curve, another curve could be this, third curve could be this. Now, which one do you choose? You end up choosing the curve for which you have a minimum error, and that is what you basically use for regression analysis. So objective is to minimize the error, and this is a standard technique that is being followed from statistics. You also studied ANN, artificial neural network, which is well accepted because it is generally give the results reasonably accurately well. The challenge is, for model to build, you need a good amount of data, large amount of data. The other challenge with ANN model is, when you build a model, you basically build a multi-layer network. So you have a, let's say, input data, and then you have the layer 1, layer 2, and you have parameters going. And you finally get the output layer and things out. Now, however these parameter weights are chosen, the weights chosen is kind of very, very opaque, and one cannot make out what those parameters really mean. So in that sense, ANN models are opaque because parameter value, whether the weights you choose 0.1 or 0.2 or 0.5 or whatever, to human that doesn't make a meaning what the parameters would mean. So in that sense, the ANN model work more like a black box, and user can't understand what is really happening inside. And this model requires large amount of data for training. It takes a good amount of compute time as well, but they are known to give you a good result, and hence these are popular. Another technique you studied is called association rule mining. that basically means, can the two attributes or two things appear together? And in that sense, you probably look at the if, and this is the property or characteristic feature is used by retailers to increase their sales item. Because they know that people do buy things together. If we look at initially the superstores, they probably keep butter and milk kind of together so that it becomes convenient for shopper to buy them. Nowadays, you'll find them because they know that when somebody buys a bread, the person is going to buy milk anyway. So rather than keeping it together, these two items are kept at the two corners of the store. And that means customer would end up walking from one corner of the store to other corner, and in the hope that because customer is walking one corner to the other, it may end up buying some more items. So job of store is the objective is to maximize profit, and by keeping them far apart, making them customer walk, they're hoping customer would buy something else in between, and they'll increase the sales because they know that customer is going to buy things together. Now, whether it is a grocery store, it is a milk bread or butter and bread or whatever you want to look at, or you can say baby diapers with beards. Suppose you find those and that kind of stuff. And this helps the shopkeeper or retailers to do their job well because they can sell the products in a much better way. And this kind of analysis keeps on doing. If you're in a stationery shop, as I said, if you're buying a notebook, you're likely to buy a pen or vice versa. And staples or the stationery stores can make it of the fact and plan their merchandise or display accordingly. Or sometimes they do that association rules. They do a bundle and buy three of these, you buy one of those, so they can somehow bundle less selling items with the more selling items and increase their sales. In case of unsupervised learning, technique we use is called clustering analysis. And this technique primarily is basically you divide the data and group them together. And you group them together using similarities or dissimilarities. Similar data comes together. And the simple example I probably give you is if I were to take the entire class of the college, on x-axis I take the weight in kgs, on the y-axis I take height, let's say in centimeter or whatever unit, and draw all the points for all the students. So on x-axis I'm keeping weights, on y-axis I'm keeping the height, and if you take for all the students and draw the points in the graph, you'll basically see it will kind of form two clusters. In the lower left half, data points will mostly correspond to the girls. On the top right, you'll probably see the cluster that will correspond to the boys, and that kind of clustering are basically doing. Same way you can look at different attributes, group them together, whether they appear together, and then somehow make a decision. Challenge with clustering is how many clusters to decide. This depends upon the user, and the algorithm doesn't say that the two clusters or three clusters or four. You as a user, as a data analyst, need to make a decision how many clusters would best fit in for a given data. And you try and look at, and that's the way things work. So we have just done the overview of data mining techniques. Next, we look at the very important technique called data visualization. In data visualization, it's important that we need to convey this. Somebody has to make a decision. It needs to get a meaningful data rather than getting a number. Can they know what actually is happening? So when some data analysts need to present the data, it is important that rather than presenting just reporting the data, one should present the conclusions. That what are the results one obtained. Now, how do you represent? There are a number of graphs, charts, that could be bar chart, there could be pie chart, there could be three-dimensional bar chart, there could be scatter plots. And there are a number of ways you want to look at the way this could be plotted, candlestick charts and whatever variations, a box chart, which indicates 25% to 75%. So there are different ways of presenting the data. But when you're making the data visualization, presenting data, you have to make sure that whatever key point you're trying to indicate should become automatically visible. And it is important that as a data analyst, you present the data, you should avoid misinterpretation, misunderstanding. And I'll give a few examples down the line. They're not in the book, but taken from elsewhere. To convey a wrong impression, data represent different way to convey your biases. And quite often you'll see politicians to win the elections, they do that giving a wrong graphics to present, and people don't realize what could be underlying mistakes. Give a few examples there. So primarily, this is used for executive dashboard. So rather than looking at the entire data, executive look at the few variables of the important ones to look at. As I said, rather than giving individual records, we would like to say how many students attend 80% classes, how many students attend 30% classes, and that can give by chart and give me idea of what is the average number you're trying to look at. That is summary that becomes part of my executive dashboard. Executive dashboard presented typically should have capability of what is called drill down. So let's say when I present that there are only 25% students who attend 80% classes and the 30% student who attend less than 40% classes. Now, the executive want to know who are those 30% students attending less than 24% classes. From the dashboard itself, can you go and get those lists? And that's the meaning of drill down the data, or which are the classes contributing it. So that should be done there. So I'll give a few examples of data visualization and give you how it wrongly could be given. So one is a simple called dial chart. First one on the left side indicates year-to-date sales and say target amount was about 18 million and currently we got only 4 million. So indicates where are we, and this is the stretch target if you can achieve. Company is what you're looking at. Same way, I want to look at quarter to date. This is year to date. This quarter to date target was about the 4.2 million and currently let's say we're 100K, very low. So dial indicates where are you in terms of what is the expectations are. Data could be presented via pie chart. Basically means you take a circle and cut a different slices and indicate the size of the slice tells you what kind of data that is. And this basically indicates the amount of sales. So it indicates green is more than 50% and things happen. Now to make a misinterpretation, people do create misleading pie chart and it happens quite often. And I would probably appeal to you to figure out, find some 3 instances where you find the wrong data. I'll give you this chart. Can somebody tell me what is misleading part about this chart? From the reference I've given you. And we would like to say what is being misrepresented in this pie chart.
The value and the chart doesn't match. So, like if we see,
Give the example.
there's 42%, but in the pie chart there's more than 50%.
Correct. So you see, though the actual data says is 42%, but slice is more than 50%. This is called misrepresentation. There's a one more misrepresentation. Can you figure out?
The total is not 100, sir.
Total is not 100. That's another issue. Look at that part. So this is how the data is misrepresented. So it's a beautiful article while doing a Coursera course that how the graphics can be used to line. So this is the article. I'll strongly recommend you, all of you, to read and figure out what could be the misrepresentations and how things are done. I'll give a few more examples there. Let us look at another example. This was in the elections. It was, I believe, in Venezuela elections, presidential elections, and it's a look, Maduro won by a whopping margin. What is wrong with this chart?
The graphs, the difference between the two values is very less. But the
yeah, graphically it shows way too high. So simply cut down the bottom part. Actually, the graph should have been like this. But to represent, look how popular one is, you misrepresent and do that part. In fact, there is a good book which I read, How Statistics Can Lie. You can use the statistics to give a good amount of light, presenting wrong way. So it depends how do you present, and that's sometimes statistics get a bad name, and we say there are lies, there are true lies, and then statistics, because you're trying to persuade or give a wrong information by wrong presentation. When you're doing presentation, make sure you understand what could be wrong, and is somebody providing it. And as a common person, we ignore things. We simply go carried away without looking into the fine print. So data visualization is an important technique, but it has to be used correctly. Now you can have a bar chart, you can have a 3D bar chart indicating sales per quarter or per industry or per customer type. You can look at those stuff. Or you can have further again indicating which different sales rep giving you which kind of details, and all those kind of things being looked at. So the different techniques. I'll give you another example or bad example of what is called a misinterpreting line chart. It's again taken from the book. So the government or the president indicated that, look, my unemployment rate is falling, and they give you the data from this. Whereas if you were to look at the same data for the whole year, this data is given for the 6 months. But if you look at the whole year, starting from July to, let's say, August, so has the unemployment rate really fallen over a year, or is it really increased?
it's increased, sir.
It's increased. So unemployment rate was 4.6%. After a year, it's 4.7% increase. But what the government would do, or the respective ruling party or whatever, they'll show only this half part, saying, look, from this to this employment rate fell, and they basically keep silent and cut it off. This again is what is called. So depending on how do you want to convey results, this data visualization can be heavily misused. As a data analyst, your job is to present the right results. And if somebody is presenting wrongly, you should make sure that you understand it correctly. What is the mistake? Like we said in the pie chart when I showed you, everything should add up to 100, which wasn't the case. That itself means data is not right. And if you look at other few other pies, there are two pies which are both of 4%, but not in the same ratio. And that is what typically happens one has to look at. In fact, the graphical representation, one of the best created artifacts people given is what is called Minards representing Napoleon's Russia campaign. And in this chart, it was created almost, I would say, 100 plus years ago. And this chart was created. So Napoleon's journey to conquer Russia or Moscow was 1812, and this chart was created around 1850 or 1862, 50 years later. But it probably captures a lot of data graphically, present two things. So this chart represents 6 types of data in the 2 dimensions. It doesn't become appear as it is. Once you look at the fine print, you'll probably know what this data basically means. So this chart indicates the march of Napoleon from Poland to the Moscow and back. So you probably look at the location starting from this place and goes up to Moscow, and then you are back. Now this width, if you look at the light orange or whatever color you look at, the width indicates the number of size of the army that started marching. And for each millimeter of the width, this corresponds to 10,000 army men. So when Napoleon started, it started with the army of about 4,22,000 people. And as and when it started progressing, as and when it went to the Moscow, the number of people that reached there were only about 110,000. From the Poland to the Moscow, when they reached, out of 4,22,000 size army, only 110,000 army could reach Moscow, and that means 75% army men were lost on the way. The black color indicates the return path. So-called conquer of 10,000 people, when they started moving back, 100,000 people, when they started moving back, they actually reached, and the number of people returned is 10,000. So it started with 4,22,000 people. And the number of people that come back, this width indicates the size of the army, 10,000 people. So you almost lost more than 95% of army men. So it indicates what kind of victory that was. You start with the army of 4 lakh, you return back, you have only 10,000 people. So how you can call the victory? Other part it indicates is, if you look at, it also gives you some geography and other details. So we look at the size of the troop. This width indicates size of the troop. And suddenly you look at, like this curvy lines, these are the, what is basically river. So army keeps moving, and when they cross this river, at this point in time, army was about much number, and 40,000 simply became 10,000. So crossing the river, number of army men became just half. That means there was a severe attack they faced, and a lot of army men would die. On this further, you probably see is not there, but you can see the temperature here given. What is the temperature one has faced? You can see the direction of travel both ways, the locations there, and this basically indicates the whole 6 parameters in a 2-dimensional chart and indicates the scaling on the dates when the troops different moved. So look at the dates, July, so started from October, and by the time they reach December, so from 100,000 people, all the people who left is 10,000 people, and that indicates the movement of Napoleon. And that's what really happened when this moved. And this, because it represents truly a picture of how did the Napoleon army move, is considered one of the classic data presentation or data visualization, even though we don't have the terms like that. But and look at this figure which is created, is almost now 150 years old, and it captures so much information, represent truthfully, one can make out, and that becomes, so the key point that indicates is, out of 4 lakh people, the people returned is only 10,000, a heavy loss. When you cross the river, suddenly the troop size decreased by half. That means there's severe attack. And because of the temperature, the army couldn't sustain it. They also lost army men, and gives you all kind of those details when you look at this picture. And that's how basically one should see the picture. Now, when you have to look at your own data set, So we had looked at our data mining and we looked at basic data visualization. Now, to understand how things work, it is always a good idea to work with your own data, create your own data and try to analyze, and that will help you understand things up. So maybe what you can do is create your own data set. Maybe write your age, gender, height, weight. You don't need an ID. Put in a Google Doc and say, can you visualize, put some kind of presentations. Or you can create your own data based on the marks from semester 1 to 2 or 3 or is subject wise and visualize the data, how things are. And you can look at data for the whole class and visualize. Excel gives you good amount of data, is the basic tool, can work with a small amount of data, not with large amount of data, it will take too much time. But Excel itself is a good tool which you can use to analyze and visualize the data. Once you have data in the Excel, you can plot it like a scatter plot. What is a scatter plot? Anyone? We've been using it, talking about it. What is a scatter plot? Amoga? Meghna? Kritika? Anyone? When you look at the data and you plot the points, when you plot the points, that basically scatter plot how the points are distributed, how the points are scattered. Simple as when you just draw the points without connecting anything, without drawing a line or something, that is a scatter plot. So build your own data, run your own regression. You can then, once you have basic idea using Excel, then you can go to more advanced tools such as Weka. How many of you heard about Weka? This is again an open source tool. I know most of you have been using Python for machine learning, like Python scikit, but Weka can have a lot of algorithms and you can use it straight by doing tools. Has anyone used Weka in your class? Lakshmi, Prasanna,
So,
have you heard about Weka as a tool?
yeah, I heard about it, but I haven't used.
Is there anybody who use Weka in the class? It doesn't look like. So my recommendation would be install Weka. And when you install Weka, it comes with a lot of data. And if you look at the first example, when you look at your machine learning course, which was basically weather, hot, sunny weather, rainy, windy sky, sunny sky, and those kind of things, you get those kind of data. And sometimes in the ML lab, you would have done the iris data, which is petals, and all those data basically come as part of your Weka installation. So if you can run it, learn it, you can probably do good amount of things. You can run regression tests, you can run decision tree. I'll probably give a little, just very brief overview and then see, can you really look at and do things up. So my recommendation would be to install Weka. If those you have Excels, you can add analyst pack for Excel. You can search and install it. Download Weka. This is the URL I'm giving you. And there's a data set where you can download, but Weka comes with own data set. And a quick guide how to use Weka probably comes from here. So I can quickly give you those. And those who are more interested, want to get deep dive, R is another good popular language which you like to use. You can download R and install, and depends how to really like to look at. So just that I try to give you maybe about the Weka part. So this is the tutorial I was talking about. And you can see it's basically using the data, which is the first data which you probably used in your ML lab or ML class, which was data, the attribute outlook, then the temperature, humidity, windy, and then basically, yes, should you play or no, the labels, yes or no. So we can run Weka. So you can explore the data, let's say open file, or you can specify URL. And this is your weather data which you look at, and you can see it has 14 rows, and you have 5 attributes. Place the one that basically the labels, and you can look at, if you want to look at outlook as an attribute, this outlook has 3 values: sunny, overcast, rainy. And for this sunny, if you look at, there are 5 records, and red means no and blue means yes. So if you want to look at the data, I can even show you the data. You can basically say sunny, sunny no, and there's a one more sunny no. So 3 no's, then 1 yes, and another yes. So 3 no and 2 yes, and with what you can basically see sunny. If you look at attribute overcast, 4, they're all yes, which you can look from here. Overcast, yes, overcast, yes, overcast, yes. So all the 4 values are yes. And if you look at different attributes, click on temperature, it gives you for those humidity and whatever you like to do. If I want to do some kind of attribute analysis based on this, you can fully define a filter. Choose filters, I believe. Sorry, I need to go classify. So classify, I would say choose. Rather than rules, I'll want to build a tree, and let's say some filter I'll use, and then start. So, and you basically say different things. 3 and A is yes, no, depending on the attribute, and figure out. And you want to build a tree, you can actually see visualize tree, and that kind of tree would have probably built up using an algorithm. When you build an IDF algorithm, when you look at the decision tree algorithm, your ID3 or C402 or CART, other ones, so different algorithms available. You can probably try doing it, play with it, and you probably see how things will really work out. You can try different things, play with it, you will understand it better. So I would recommend you to do that. So just we had done the basic overview of our data analytics, and tomorrow we start with business intelligence, and it's a chapter 2, which basically the basic applications. So general overview of different domains where business analytics can be used to drive meaningful information. So we'll overview, and then we look at other topics one by one. So just to recap, there are the following questions you can look at. What is business intelligence? It's the way to find some meaningful information which could be applied to business itself to improve the efficiency part of it. You know data modeling, entity relationship diagram that used in a database. You join the tables, each table represents an entity, and then you define the relations, join the table together. We look at big data, the amount of data that you cannot process by traditional means in a given system. Data warehouse, it is way of reorganizing data or gathering data at a higher granularity level so that it can give kind of specific reports that management or MIS team is looking at. We looked at extract, transform, load. So before you load data into the database, you want to make sure that process the data, remove the unwanted data, or if the data is unclean, clean the data. That's all part of extract, transformation into convert and then load. Data mining, what we studied, all the techniques, basically what we do to find intelligence, we use data mining techniques, so classification techniques, which basically we use in classification or regression. Classification basically means we work with the labels, fixed values. Regression meanings it could be continuous output that we can get. So study, review those. Decision tree is very popular because analyzing once a model is built, given the input data, prediction is very, very quick. And the problem with decision tree is it could lead to overfitting and you may not get a good result. ANN is considered very good in terms of predictability, but model works more like a black box and parameter doesn't make common sense to the human being. So the different questions what you look at. So that basically brings to the end of our lecture today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, you can basically drop.